Welcome everyone to this session of the Demand Gen Summit. I am joined by Lisa Ferris. How are you doing, Lisa?
Great. How are you today?
Doing good. For those of you who don't know Lisa, she is a CMO at Soundtrack Your Brand, which is a music streaming for business. You guys should check it out. But before we get started, I'd love to know a little bit about yourself, Lisa, and about Soundtrack Your Brand.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. Soundtrack Your Brand is a music streaming service for business. We do businesses that globally that range from the coffee shop around the corner to multi-billion-dollar industries, from restaurants and hotels to offices and retail. Music is one of the most cost-efficient ways of differentiating your brand for guests, customers, employees. I mean, we have large offices that use it to maintain the best atmosphere for guests. But obviously, it tends to be used more aggressively in retail and or more strategically in retail and restaurants, and where you really are trying to create a guest experience. The business side of music streaming, though, is really unique in terms of understanding the needs that a business has versus if you were playing Apple or Spotify at home. So you have scheduling tools, centralized controls, explicit lyric filters. There are so many different unique needs that a business has when they're playing music versus a consumer.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, I'm sure we all heavily listen to music and know how big it even reflects our own personality. So it makes sense to have that exist for your brand as well. How did you kind of get into this world and specifically with Soundtrack Your Brand and within the music?
So my career started in advertising and in the music business. I worked at a direct-to-consumer marketing company for the record industry for several years, and then I joined MCA Records and Universal Music Group, and then actually got out of music for a little while. I was chief marketing officer for Realtor.com for a period of time. I founded and sold two businesses, and then came back into music in the last 4 years and met the CEO of Soundtrack Your Brand, who really had a vision on how to take music streaming for business to the next level, because most music streaming services for business are just limited playlists, important ones, but limited playlists. And nowadays, most business brand owners act like consumers. They want that same experience. So we're actually the only company that allows you to create custom playlists from 120 million tracks on demand, rather than only having playlists. Now, mind you, that is not an easy feat. The average music consumer listens to about an hour to 2 hours of music per day, and our businesses on average listen to over 14 hours of music per day. So it's a daunting task to put together some of these playlists. But we can talk about it later. We've created some really great tools like AI playlist generators and things like that.
I mean, that's so cool. I mean, thank you so much for sharing from your experience. I mean, we were so lucky to have you and to kind of like pick your brain on what you guys are doing and how you're finding success. After talking to you a little bit in preparation for this call, you shared that you guys are really a product-led growth company. What does that mean for Soundtrack Your Brand, and how are you really leveraging that?
For us, it has meant a really spectacular level of growth, not just in terms of sales and customers, but really our focus on being a customer-centric led company. And that's the foundation of product-led growth. It is really about making the product as best as it can be so that it stands and speaks for itself on its own. And so to do that, and there are a lot of companies who kind of try to do product-led growth, and you can't really try. You have to make that commitment of being customer-centric, understanding the pain points, and we'll probably talk a lot about pain points today, because it's not just the features and benefits when you're selling product-led growth. It's truly understanding the needs of the customer and creating the product that matches it, and then giving them that. Some companies do freemium, we do a free trial, so that they fall in love with the product and it becomes very much a self-service process for them to subscribe. Um, it is such a key thing, and so that's why you can't really try to do it. You have to go all in.
Yeah. I mean, with what we see with a lot of technology companies is we kind of hold our cards close to our chest and we don't really want to expose all of our secrets into our product. What do you have to say to that as someone who does offer that free trial?
In some ways, I think it's a bit of an antiquated approach to product for many B2B SaaS companies. Now, that said, I understand there are certain companies that, can't do that. So I want to acknowledge that up front. But I think that taking that out of the mix and deciding that the customer experience is more important than what you might be afraid of from a fast follower. Because again, I think if you do focus on the customer needs, worrying about what your competitors are doing is much less important.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You also really, I like the word you use, commit. You really need to commit to this product led growth. And as we said before, it can seem quite daunting. Maybe if you could share a little bit on like the success that you have found from making that pivot and fully committing to that product led growth.
Yeah, sometimes I've heard marketers say, we're going to try product-led growth. And if you don't have the buy-in from the entire organization, because it really does start with product and growth departments and revenue departments, the way Soundtrack Your Brand made that decision it changed the business objectives of the company completely. How it operated, how we sold, how we built product, our customer care team, at every single level, it really changed the dynamic of how we approached our business strategy, really. So it Unfortunately, a marketing team could say, I think this is the right thing for our team, but without getting buy-in from the entire organization, it's really hard to implement because there are some tenets to PLG. Some of them, which we even find challenging. So, for example, in addition to being customer centric and in addition to providing customers with either a freemium or a free trial, those companies that have really succeeded in product-led growth also have a virality effect. So, for
Mhm.
example, if we're thinking about Calendly,
Yeah.
when you use Calendly and you send it to someone sees it on your calendar and say, you know what, I need that too. It's a little bit different for us because we don't have other business owners going into a store and saying, what are you using for music? So we lack a little bit of the virality. One of the things that we rely on is an employee who works at a particular location when they go to the next location says, you know what, you're missing out. But it's not as viral as some of the PLG companies, and using again Calendly as the example, or Zoom, by the way, or so many others.
Yeah. No, I love that. You talked a little bit about one of the pain points just being getting the buy-in. Like how long would you say would be like a normal time to make the transition? Like what would that look like and feel like for someone wanting to take this on as a marketing leader?
It's a really good question. So, Soundtrack had made the decision to move toward product-led growth before I joined, and it really was part of the brainchild of our CEO. So, I think the time frame is difficult to answer, but I think it goes a lot faster if it is adopted by the senior leadership and everyone really takes that position. Now, I think if that you have been a customer-centric product team to begin with in terms of product development, I think it probably will go faster, but I don't really know the answer to kind of what that time frame is. But it does affect every aspect of the organization.
Yeah. And I know you also have some really interesting stats. I don't know if you can share them, but just on the success that you guys have seen from doing this product led growth, to you shared a little bit about just how many people you have coming in through these free trials.
Right. So, your conversion rates are key, right? In terms of, there are some benchmarks. By the way, OpenView provides benchmarks, and so we do measure ourselves toward OpenView. We see, on average, anywhere between 11 and 40% conversion rates for people who come in and actually and do a trial. That depends on the industry type. It depends on sometimes the geographic location. We're a global company, so we do have different conversion rates for the US versus Oceania versus Europe. But it also really depends on the business type. So hotels and restaurants, for example, the hospitality, food and beverage industry converts at a higher rate typically than an office will. So I think it's hard to say, but the open view rates, which I believe are approximately between 10 and 12%, are really the benchmark to hit. And that's hard, by the way. It's a challenge. We had this mission of reaching 10 from 10 to 20% conversion, and we far exceeded that with some industry types. But it's a constant goal that you're trying to reach and enhance it.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy all your points of views on these. The one thing I kind of want to pick your brain on is we're talking a lot about PLG, but where does sales-led growth fit into this? A lot of companies, that's kind of their main motion, and it's a hard one to let go. So where do you fit sales-led growth fits into this PLG?
It's a really great question. We were fortunate last year to see 30% growth on our really leveraging our PLG motion and getting really great at it and focusing on it. We leveraged sales in that past year, far more focused on an assisted sales growth perspective. However, there comes a time when you can no longer solely depend on search demand, and you have to extend it to really take it to the next level. And so there are a lot of studies and articles right now on how to take that next level from PLG and bring back in a sales motion. We're right in the midst of that currently. How do you do that without losing your focus? How do you do that cost efficiently? So there is a place for both, and I think it's important for them to coexist without ever losing the core value of what product-led, the benefits of PLG in your marketing.
Yeah. I think the last thing I wanted to touch on when it comes to product-led growth is it's so customer focused, and you start creating a product that's really for the customers. And I know you guys had recently launched like an AI feature. And I imagine that came a lot from this initiative. If you want to share a little bit more about that feature and what that process looked like and why you guys are now introducing this AI side to your product.
Sure. It's a double-edged sword in a little bit when you're doing PLG, because you are very customer focused, but it's from a purely analytical process, because it is such a self-service environment. You don't necessarily speak to customers as often as you would like. However, we are highly focused on analyzing what the needs are of the customer based upon their usage. And through that, and through the challenges of people putting together the most tailored playlist for their needs. And if you think about certain businesses, it's not just one 14-hour playlist or 24-hour playlist throughout the day. It's different moments and different cadences throughout the day. So if you are a hotel or a restaurant or even a retail store, you're going to play something different in the morning for guests than you are in the afternoon or at happy hour or on a Saturday evening. And so the more we saw that, we realized that we needed to provide a very efficient way for customers to tailor their playlists. And so our team created this Soundtracks AI playlist generator. And not only is it awesome, it's really fun. I mean, you can go in and put in your business type, your location, because some businesses choose to play different music, even if they're a large brand, by the region that they're in, your demographic, and what the vibe is that you're trying to create, or the genres of music that you're trying to put in. And it generates, a tailored playlist within seconds. And that did come from really making sure that we were customer centric and taking a look at the needs of our consumers.
I mean, that's so cool. I think one of the things I love most about companies being more accepting of AI and looking for ways to incorporate it is just the amount of time that it can help save people. And to me, like the way you're describing this, I'm like, oh my goodness, that would save a company so much time. I'm sure we've all put together a playlist. I used to put them together for like family road trips, and I would spend hours to curate this perfect playlist where you could easily just fill out what information you described, like your location, what kind of vibe you're looking for, and have it help with that. It would save companies so much time.
And it's so exciting right now because what we're doing with AI playlists, we're actually doing it before most of the consumer services are, because it is very different, again, to put a 2-hour playlist together than it
Yeah.
is to put a 14-hour playlist together.
Yeah, I can only imagine how much time that would take. So the next thing I kind of want to talk to you about is with your demand gen initiatives. And I know a really big initiative at Soundtrack is you guys are, I think, from the way you described it, kind of like paid ad experts. You seem to really be using them in a thoughtful and innovative way. I'd love to just know a little bit about what you're currently doing for your paid ads and how you're finding success.
Sure. Well, before we jump into paid,
Yeah.
organic search is critical for us. In fact, more than 50% of our traffic does come from direct and organic and
Yeah.
partnership links. But paid has changed in the past year. And I think I shared with you, I was on a call with a CMO call that we do every Friday morning at 8 a.m. And we were talking about forecasting. The topic was forecasting. And everyone was chatting about how forecasting has gotten so much more difficult. And suddenly this one guy raises his hand and he said, I don't even know how to forecast anymore. I have seen our rates go up. And in that silence of everyone trying to figure out, is what we did last year going to work this year? All of a sudden, there were 20 people who started chiming in, either in the chat or raising their hand. And we realized that everything has changed. Rates have changed. Your tactics for search have changed. In last year, we kept refining and refining, trying to get that conversion rate to a better place. We switched from broad match to exact and phrase match. We were doing everything that we thought was the right thing. Suddenly, December and January rolls around, and it's not working anymore. Not only is it not working, but our costs, our CPCs, have gone up exponentially. So now you can't just roll everything back. You have to try to figure out and analyze what will it take to get back to where you were and to now grow another 30%. And so, as I shared with you, I think sometimes it's so important for us to join the summits like we're in today, or to have a network of colleagues that you can bounce things off of, because otherwise you think you're going crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about like how much it's changed, and you can't just like stop everything and start anew. So does it all just come down to just testing and pulling back in some areas and then ramping up others?
Experimenting is really the name of the game. And that goes for organic search as well. I mean, we've seen algorithm changes, and perhaps in many cases refocusing on organic. I mean, we did do that while we were trying to figure out what paid search was going to look like in 2024. We know that our continuing to build our authority, continuing to build our brand in organic was the foundation of everything that we should do, because you can no longer rely on systematic forecasting for paid advertising. And then the other thing that we did was we looked at, ensuring that we had an omnichannel campaign in place, because putting your eggs in any single basket is never a good idea with any marketing campaign, truly.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I mean, with all the challenges that are coming with paid ads, you talked one way to overcome this is just communities. I think the other thing you mentioned that I thought was really interesting is that you guys had brought it up in this community in your CMO meeting, and everyone was like, I'm also having these forecasting issues. And then most recently, you also said that there was a DOJ article that came out that kind of then validated that feeling. And so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. But overall, I'm getting the sense that like we as marketers are not alone in the challenges that we're facing.
No, we are definitely not alone. I mean, I guess the only thing that the Department of Justice review of Google's ad practices did was make you feel like you weren't going crazy. I don't know that it makes you feel any better about how you're going to forecast for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But yes, there was a Search Engine Land was one of the publications that put out there the DOJ Google search ad price manipulation article. And so all it does is confirm that you need to continue to stay the course, but it may not solve the problem. And that's why I think that focusing on search, and there's, with generative search out there, there's so much that you can do. There's so much that you can plan for, keeping up with all of the changes in search. And again, going omnichannel and making sure that you are touching people as at least 12 times within a period of time, if it's part of your account-based focus or your ICPs. We're doing account-based marketing, frankly, probably for the first time in years, even though we are a PLG company.
Yeah.
We're doing things a little bit differently and trying everything that we can to reach vertical markets in the most efficient way.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I guess kind of before we conclude, if there's any other key takeaways you'd like our listeners to walk away from this with.
I think probably the most important thing really is to, when you're stuck in the minutia of trying to either fix something, is to take a step back and really see where is your audience spending their time. It's easy to kind of get stuck in that, how we did business in 2023. And I think there are so many things that you just can't simply replicate in 2024, and you have to just get creative.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that where I'm working, from everyone that I've talked to about our event are kind of feeling the same way. So thank you so much for joining us. I really loved all the information that you shared on PLGs and how to better use your ads. If anyone's looking to contact you or learn more about your company, are they good to just check you out on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. LinkedIn or Lisa at soundtrackyourbrand.com. And Jenny, thank you for having me. I think these conversations are really important. And, we're all in this together, even if we have come from different B2B verticals.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa.